Hi, welcome. We will be looking at chapter 1. We will be looking at chapter 1, and in this chapter, which is matter and change, we will be looking at section 2, and in section 2, we will base ourselves in looking at matter and its properties. Matter and its properties. So when we are looking at matter and its properties, the first thing that we would do is first we should know that everything as we know it, so all things are made of matter. All things are made of matter. We should know that all things are made of matter. So all things are made of matter. So when we are looking at matter, when we want to explain really what matter is, it involves finding the properties that all matter has. So if we want to define the term matter, we have to look at the properties of matter. So properties of matter will tell us really what matter is. So some of the properties of matter will include all matter has volume. So some of the properties of matter is that all matter has volume. All matter has volume. So you might ask yourself, what is volume? So volume is the amount of three-dimensional space an object occupies. Volume is the amount of three-dimensional space, three-dimensional space that an object occupies. So what we are meaning here is that the space taken by an object is basically what we are referring to as volume. Then another property, property number 2 of matter, is that all matter has mass. All matter has mass. All matter has mass. So all matter has mass. So if it happens that an object does not have mass, then we can't regard it as being matter. So what is mass? Mass is basically the measure of the amount of matter. The measure of the amount of matter. So mass is the measure of the amount of matter, of the amount of matter in an object. So if we take a ball, so the content that makes up that ball is what we call matter, and we normally find matter by using a balance. So we use a balance. We use a balance to find what matter is. So mass, I mean. So if you want to find the mass of an object, then you will have to measure. And to measure, you have to use an instrument which is a balance. Matter can thus, if we are now going to define it, can be defined as anything that has mass. Matter is anything that has mass. Matter is anything that has mass. That has mass. So anything that has mass and takes up space. So if you know anything that has mass, that is, we can weigh it and find its mass, and it occupies space, then that thing is nothing but matter. That thing is nothing but matter. So these two properties are just but the general properties of all matter. So all matter will first have mass, and the second thing is that it has to occupy space. So matter comes in many forms. The fundamental building blocks of matter are atoms and molecules. The fundamental building blocks of matter are atoms and molecules. The fundamental building blocks of matter are atoms and molecules. Are atoms and molecules. So if we take, for instance, this diagram here, if we take this diagram here, you will see that what we have here, these are carbon atoms, and these carbon atoms, when they come together, they form what we are calling a diamond. So a diamond is made of many carbon atoms coming together. In the second case here, we have hydrogen atoms coming together with carbon atoms with oxygen atoms. They make sucrose, which is table sugar. So these atoms here are what we are saying are the building blocks of matter, because sucrose is matter and diamond also is matter. And diamond is also matter. So the particles, that is the particles which we are calling atoms, the smallest unit of an element, an atom is the smallest, though we know it's not the smallest. Even an atom still has other particles that make it, that is electrons, neutrons, and protons, but it is normally defined as the smallest unit of an element, the smallest unit of an element that maintains the chemical identity of that element, that maintains the chemical identity of that element. So here the term identity really has a big implication. When we are saying identity, we mean that the atoms that make up an element will determine what type of element we are talking about. An element, on the other hand, is a pure substance that cannot be broken down. An element is a pure substance. An element is a pure substance An element is a pure substance that cannot be broken down. That cannot be broken down into simpler, stable substances. Into simpler, stable substances. So each compound is made from the atoms or two or more elements. So when we are talking of a compound is basically what is made. A compound is made of one or more elements. So when one or more elements come together, they form a compound. So a compound, on the other hand, is a substance that can be broken down into simpler, stable substances. A compound is a substance that can be broken down into simpler, stable substances. If we take an example, we might be having here, for example, oxygen. Oxygen here is an element. When we have oxygen coming together with hydrogen, that is H2O to form water, then this one now becomes a compound. This becomes a compound. So each compound is made from the atoms or two or each compound is made from two or more. It's made from two or more atoms or atoms of the same type, of different elements, of more elements. So here we have hydrogen, an element. Then we have oxygen, an element. These are two elements making up a compound. Here we have oxygen, it's an element, and it does not make a compound. And that are chemically bonded. So if they are not chemically bonded, then they are not elements. So for an element, they are not compounds. So a compound must have one, two or more atoms of more than one element that are bonded chemically. So we will be looking at examples. Here so that we try to make it clear. So if we are having here we are saying that here we are having a party. You call people for a party, and in this party people will come with juices, others will come with balloons, others will bring flowers, others will bring maybe substances for eating. All these are nothing but matter. All these are matter. And all this matter, like you can see them, are made of small molecules. They are made of small molecules, and these molecules are made of atoms. These molecules are made of atoms. So if we take a tin, a can of soda, for example, it is made of one element, that is aluminium. It's made of the element aluminium, and it is made of many atoms of aluminium. So all these atoms of aluminium make the element aluminium. They make the element aluminium. So these atoms, which are bonded together, they make an aluminium element. If we are having carbon, carbon is just another example of an element, and it will be made by different carbon atoms. So different carbon atoms will make. This is gold. Gold is another element, and this element is made of atoms of gold. It's made of atoms of gold. We look at another example. If we were having this charcoal, which is carbon, charcoal is carbon, it is matter, it is made of molecules. This, as you see here, if we have a molecule like nitrogen and oxygen coming together, they will form nitrogen, oxygen. So this is a molecule. When they bond together, they form a molecule, but they are elements. So two elements coming together, they form a molecule. And they may either form a molecule. If not a molecule, then they can form a compound. So if they are of the same type, like you have them existing, this being chlorine, 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 they form chlorine molecules. They form chlorine molecules. Then you have here another example here. This is sodium chloride. This one is now a compound because it is made of elements of sodium and elements of chlorine coming together. They form what we are calling a sodium chloride. Sodium chloride is a compound. Sodium chloride is a compound. Then we have here another example. Here we have hydrogen, hydrogen, oxygen. Here oxygen. This is an element. This is an element. And water is nothing but a compound. So one molecule of hydrogen and of oxygen, they form water. So this is water. Water is regarded to be a compound of hydrogen elements and oxygen elements. Vinegar molecules, as you can see them arranged there. So these are the atoms that will form it. We will have carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. So basically, it's clear that all atoms, all matter are made of atoms, and the atoms will make elements, and the elements will make compounds. So what we have here are just but examples of elements. These elements can exist in pairs to form molecules and compounds, to form molecules. And so here we are having molecules of water, molecules of carbon and dioxide, and these are single atoms. So these things we are calling molecules are, in fact, here they are the ones we are calling compounds, and the ones that we are calling atoms are the ones we are calling elements. So elements and compounds. So we'll stop here for this video, and in the next video we will now be looking at the details of all these.